the maintenance of hospital equipment after a surgical light at an operating theatre fell and injured a medical worker at United Christian Hospital. To comment on this, we're now joined on the line by Alex Lam, the chairman of Hong Kong Patients' Voices, and Dr. David Lam, lawmaker representing medical and health services. Good morning, Dr. Lam.
Good morning.
And good morning, Mr. Lam.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us on the program. So, first of all, Dr. Lam, you've been a medical doctor for a long time. Have you heard of anything like this happening at Hong Kong hospitals before?
No, actually, for the past 30 years, I've never heard of things like this before.
Right. And, Mr. Lam, have you spoken to any patients about this? Are they concerned?
Well, not yet, but I have been receiving operations for quite a few times, so I would be shocked if hearing this news, because the last thing that you undergo operation in an operation theatre, the last thing you see would be the light.
Yeah, and you don't expect it to fall on you.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, Dr. Lam, you're the legislator for the medical and health services. What's being done to make sure this is not going to happen again?
We have contacted the hospital authority immediately, and as they have also done to the press, they told us what they have done so far. So they have asked the manufacturer to check all the OT lamps of the same model and also the same brand as soon as possible. And what they should do next is to report what they have found to the public and make sure that only operating rooms that are safe will be used for patient care. Now, mind you, it is the pendants that falls off. Of course, the pendant is connected to the lights, and there are other pendants in the OT rooms for various purposes, so that has to be checked as well.
There are lots of other equipment in the hospital that needs to be checked. What are the regulations as far as maintenance is concerned?
Now, the maintenance is basically a requirement imposed on the hospital authority and all private hospitals by the electrical and mechanical departments. And I think the Department of Health also requires that all these instruments are up to standard before they would give the license to the hospital. So supposedly they are all under regulation. But then it is sometimes the maintenance or the checking itself that could be possibly at fault. We understand that that particular OT lamp has been checked just 2 months before the accident happened. So that's a very short time, 2 months. So the next question is, why did it happen despite of the checking within that short period of time? So what did they check? Did they really follow the protocol? Or is there a design irregularity with the OT lamp that leads to all these issues? So we're still waiting for a full report.
All right. Now, according to some media reports, the Swedish manufacturer of these surgical lights actually have 2 previous records of defective screws in surgical lights in the United States. Dr. Lam, what do you think of this latest revelation?
It's shocking that we are not told. I mean, the Hong Kong hospital authority is not told, because if there are lost screws, that means the screws that fix the pendant to the ceiling can drop off without anyone noticing. And there are just a few of these screws, as I understand, like 6 of them that keeps the pendants fixed to the roof in the ceiling. And if some of those fall off without anybody noticing, then that means that poses a serious danger to whoever is working underneath the lamp. I think it is quite shocking that the company kept that as a secret and not disclosing to all the customers.
Yeah, so as a legislator and as a doctor, what kind of changes would you propose as far as making sure that equipment are safe?
Now, first of all, we have to look into the regulations so far that is working. And one must understand that it is still a very safe place, for it has never happened before in Hong Kong, at least not for the past 30-odd years. At least we have 2 air flights accidents in the past 30, 40 years, but none in an operating room like this before, so it's still a very safe place. But I think the hospital authority has to make a full report, and based on that report, we have to decide what has to be changed. But in the meantime, an ad hoc checking of all these equipment will be in place to make sure that patients are safe.
All right, Mr. Lam, what's your view on what I just mentioned earlier, that some media reports actually found that the manufacturer of the surgical lights actually had 2 previous records of defective screws in surgical lights in the United States before?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well,
why do you think that the Hong Kong authorities didn't know about it?
Well, I have no idea whether the company actually informed the HA about the incident. But what I see from the internet search is quite different from what Dr. Lam had said. Actually, the manufacturer had made a report to the FDA about the finding, the missing screw or the some problem with the light, reporting to the FDA. So the product can actually make a research about this, and I spent half an hour in my office to find this information. So, of course, I'm not sure whether it would be the duty for the manufacturer to inform the HA. However, the company have to make sure that if this information they submit to the FDA, they should also likewise submit to the HA for their consideration for a warning. Of course, the most recent incident about the missing screw in the light was in December last year. So it's about 2 months ago. And when the checking in the relevant hospital in Hong Kong was also done in December. So I'm not sure whether the people or the technicians doing the checking were made aware of the screw problem. But this incident, as far as you know, or reported by the HA, that there was some problem with the screw, that it was broken. So there's another problem, apart from what Dr. Lam has said. There might be a problem with the checking.
Yeah.
But if there's a problem with the material used in the light, then there might be a system that you should replace certain important parts once in a while to make sure that they function well. Because from what we heard, the light has been in use for over 10 years.
Okay, so this is the Food and Drug Administration in the U.S. that you're referring to, and according to their website, the same manufacturer of the surgical light had reported that a similar light in France, actually, the screw it was actually just missing. It just wasn't there. So, Dr. Lam. This is a faulty instrument. This is presumably, if you buy something and part of it is missing, you should go back to the manufacturer and say, hey, what gives? What do you think should be done now?
Exactly. Now, when they found out there's something wrong with the instrument, and they noticed a screw has been gone missing in other parts of the world for the same model, and they reported to FDA. Why FDA? You said the accident happened in France, was it? So they did report to the European authority, but they reported to FDA. What does that mean? Well, then they report to us in Hong Kong. And even reporting alone, now we are talking about the manufacturer who is responsible for checking their own products in the hospital authority, at least for this particular model. So if we don't know, then the manufacturer's own mechanical personnel should know where lies the problem and where is the hazardous part. And even if that is known to them, they did not check the screws, then one must ask, has there been some serious fault in their checking? So that is also another area that we have to look into.
Is the manufacturer responsible for checking these lights? Do you know?
For this one, yes.
Okay. All right. And is there some sort of a risk alert protocol that exists for situations like this?
I believe there should be. Say, if you drive a car and something goes seriously wrong with the model or the design, then we always have that, call back up the cars and then get things repaired or replaced. But now we're talking about OT lights, and nothing happened. And only after the accident happened in Hong Kong that we realized that there has been similar screws gone missing in other parts of the world, and we're kept in the dark. So I think that is totally unacceptable.
So are you saying
the authorities should consider not using this brand anymore in the future?
And maybe approach a manufacturer about the lights that we already have?
The manufacturer should have the responsibility of approaching their customers in the first place.
Right. So it's like when you buy a car,
How could you know? When you are the driver or the owner of the car, how could you expect yourself to know something's wrong with the design of the car?
Right. Do you know, Dr. Lam, do you know if this manufacturer is only responsible for surgical lights? Is it responsible for other hospital equipment?
They make a lot of hospital equipment, from OT lights to intensive care equipment to anesthetic machines. So they are quite a big company and almost a leader in the profession. I mean, in the manufacturing of these OT equipment around the world. They serve areas such as intensive care unit, cardiovascular units, sterilizing processes, and so on. So they're quite a big company.
So what do you think the hospital authorities should be done regarding the other equipment right now under this brand?
Right. Well, I believe the hospital authority has to talk to the manufacturer and have good protocols for reporting similar findings of faulty instruments, even if it happens in other parts of the world. So we must not be left in the dark if something's gone wrong with the design.
I'm looking at a photograph of this surgical light. Basically, is on the gurney, and anybody who was under it could have been seriously injured. Alex Lam, what are some of your advice to patients who might be at risk of being injured, not specifically by this light, but of surgical instruments or hospital equipment in general?
Well, basically, I can't make any advice to the patients because they are supposed to have a safe environment, not to mention that they are going to receive the operation. But I will expect the HA to contact the electrical and mechanical services department and to invite them to undergo or conduct an investigation over the incident. Because you remember that just a few weeks ago, 2 doctors from the same hospital were charged with manslaughter over a medical blunder. And this accident could lead to another fatal accident. So I think the EMSD would have the expertise because they have the health services division to provide service to the public hospitals. I've actually written an email to the department suggesting them to conduct an investigation to see if there's a problem of a possible negligence, technical issues, or manufacturing or product defects leading to the incident to make sure that it won't happen.
All right, Mr. Lam, I'm afraid we're out of time. Thanks again for joining us this morning. That's Alex Lam, the chairman of Patients' Voices. And many thanks also to Dr. David Lam, Medical and Health Services lawmaker.